Hello and welcome to this IsleVote21 online meeting for the Isle of Wight County Council seat of Wootton Bridge. A brief word for the benefit of the public. IsleVote21 has been formed with the sole purpose of enhancing democracy by providing an unbiased platform for candidates. We have no affiliations or funding, and no candidates are aware of what questions will be asked today, although a list of topics was distributed in advance to enable candidates to prepare. All 138 candidates in this year's County Council election have been invited, either directly or via group and party leaders. The following candidates have been invited to this meeting: Barry Abrams, Conservative Party; John Ward, Independent; Daryll Pitcher, Vectis Party; and Suzanne Betts, Green Party. And in attendance, we have Daryll Pitcher. Thank you very much.
Pleasure to be with you.
Candidates will be asked questions from our pool of questions, plus others that have been submitted by the public regarding island-wide issues and their specific locality. Candidates have been informed there is a 2-minute limitation on answers. I will raise my hand as we approach that cutoff, and I request that the candidates finish up promptly afterwards. Before that commences, candidates have 2 minutes to give a personal statement. So please, Daryll, I'll find my stopwatch, my trusty stopwatch, and please go ahead for your 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm Daryll Pitcher. I'm the Vectis Party candidate for Wootton Bridge on the Isle of Wight Council. And it's nice to be here today to be able to lay out some of the policy points I'm standing on. There are 3 main ones in Wootton Bridge Village that I am standing on. One is the roads and the condition of the roads. The second one is housing and the number of planning applications that have been agreed recently. And the final one is services in the village, particularly the post office, which has recently closed, and our efforts to find a replacement and reintroduce that. Locally, I've been quite busy over the last few years. People locally may well have come across me. I was quite active in the COVID-19 support network that we set up by the parish council, which is still active for those that need it. I've been in regular contact with people locally, both about COVID and about numerous other issues. So I'm hopeful that people will recognise my name and possibly my face. And I'm the only candidate of the 4 standing who actually lives within the parish. Barry lives fairly close and he would say he lives in Wootton, but actually Kite Hill sadly isn't in Wootton. So I'm the only one on the ballot paper who is actually from Wootton. So that's me. Those are the key issues I think in this election for Wootton. And I'm looking forward to answering the other questions.
Thank you very much, Daryll. That's a great start. So the first question is this: can you name one policy area that the council should lobby central government for?
Yes. Part of the Vectis Party, part of the reason why the Vectis Party exists is because we believe that more things should be done locally. And a classic example of that would be during COVID, during lockdown. We saw it just before Christmas with people travelling from higher tier areas to the Isle of Wight. So the one thing I would lobby central government for is more powers for the Isle of Wight Council. I think the Isle of Wight should have some sort of decentralisation deal, if you will, so that we can control more of what we do on the island, because the island's a special place, and we need a level of competencies and so the council can actually tackle some of the problems in a way that mainland authorities don't need, because they're part of the mainland.
Okay, thank you very much. So devolution light.
Yeah.
You might call it, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Looking at the island, which has pockets of significant deprivation, What steps could be made here to enhance and develop opportunities in those areas?
It's quite right that there are areas of the island that are fairly deprived. I mean, the island as a whole, compared to the southeast, is deprived. Average wages are much lower on the island than they are just across the water. So I think to increase, to level everybody up, which I think is what we're talking about here, what you actually need to do is level the whole island up. So it's really about regeneration, creating jobs, giving people opportunities so they can work their way out of the problems that they are. It's equality of opportunity, really, for me. And at the core of that, for some of these areas, is regeneration and providing jobs and training and enabling people to have a better lifestyle and a better outcome.
Super. Okay, thank you very much. Next question is about money, something which council taxpayers and council tax accountants and the officers are very, very well aware of. We cannot escape the fact that services cost money and budgets are severely constrained. Can you describe ways to close the gap between income and expenditure?
Yes. In actual fact, for me, it comes back to what we were just talking about, which is the regeneration of the economy. One of the big problems that the island faces going forward is receipts from business rates being much lower than sort of equivalent areas on the mainland. And that's going to impact our council budget as central government moves towards replacing the grant with local business rates sort of schemes. So we've got to have those businesses here so that the council can generate the income. Also, that means that more people are earning more money, so the council tax take increases and so on and so forth. I think some of the things that the council does is it fails because it doesn't do what they want to do. So, for instance, parking charges are too high in many instances, so you end up with empty car parks, no one paying any parking charges. That actually limits your income rather than increases it. So you've got to be sensible and say parking should be set at a level whereby the car parks are full all the time, because that's the way you generate income. Another thing, and I think this is very important for people, is the council tax itself. We realise that the council is in a difficult position, but there was an opportunity this year, for instance, to not increase it as much as it was. And that is certainly something that the Vectis party would look at. We would aim for next year to not have an increase in the council tax, but to work it another way, maybe drawing on reserves, maybe increasing some income from other sources, but just to give people a break, because the people are struggling, and yeah, we need to look at that.
Okay, thank you very much. There's some good points in there. The next question is about adult education. Adult education on the island is limited. What would you do to encourage organisations on the island to provide opportunities in this area?
Well, I'm a big fan of apprenticeships, and I think on-the-job learning is very key for adult learning. And you can, when we think of apprenticeships, we often think about young people fresh out of school or whatever going into that sort of apprenticeship. But it can apply for older people as well that are transitioning careers or want to learn more or whatever. So I think there are opportunities around that. I am concerned some of the ways that apprenticeships are worked at the moment, effectively they're used as cheap labour. And I've heard some real horror stories. So I would definitely not advocate doing that. But used properly, they can certainly help. But also the college needs to expand its adult educational programme. And I think there probably needs to be a certain amount more advertising around that, because I'm sure they do plenty of good stuff already. It's just people don't know that the opportunities are there. So we need to support people as they retrain, as they want to learn more, to progress in their careers. It's about having that availability of training and making it available in such a way that people can afford it, so that, because in the long term, a better trained workforce will have a higher income because they are more skilled, and that's only a benefit to our economy. So it's an investment to accumulate, if you will.
Okay, super. Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. A virtuous circle, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, who said education, education, education? I mean, Mr. Blair, about 30.
I think it might have been, yes.
About 30 years ago or so, I'm guessing. And
not quite 30 years, but it was.
oh, you know, the time rolls on. It'll be going that way before you know it. Next question, Daryll. 1 in 5 people have a disability, equating to around 28,000 island residents having some form of disability or long-term illness. What commitment will you give to reduce the inequalities for disabled people on the island, with a view to improve facilities, services, and employment for disabled residents and visitors?
This is a very important point, because when you look at that figure of 28,000, that's nearly a quarter of the island population that falls into that category. So it is a very large slice of people that we're talking about here. Clearly, services have been cut over the years. And when we're talking about sort of later in life services, there is an awful lot of advantages to being able to keep people in their homes, particularly the elderly, when they become frail and disabled. And it's good for them, because obviously they prefer to stay in their own homes rather than being put in a care home or situation or whatever. But also from a council perspective, that actually budget-wise, it actually works out quite well as well, because it is often cheaper to keep people in their own homes than to put them in a care home. So you'd want to push that as much as possible, and that takes working with a hospital who sometimes aren't on the same page with that. But for younger people, I was always a great supporter of the Remploy company, if you remember them, that the Conservatives closed down. But that actually made money using disabled workers, and everyone benefited from that. But because it was ideologically driven, closing that down, it must have been. There was no other reason for doing that. So I think schemes like that could be set up locally, and you know, we've got to get those people into community and get them together with other people, and support them in their communities and in their neighbourhoods, and give them the opportunities to really shine.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's quite a eye-opening figure, isn't it? 28,000. When looked at that way, all of a sudden you realise that this topic needs to be discussed a lot more than it currently is. Yeah. Okay, there's a little bit of a preamble on the next question, but don't worry, the question is at the end of the preamble. Excuse me, I should add, the last couple of questions have been publicly submitted, as is the next one. It's amalgam of questions. Okay, the last two and this one. We have received many questions on housing. There is a need for homes on the island to address a shortage of housing that matches the local situation, especially for those looking to rent. But an environmental cost comes with every new house built, in terms of losing green space and the required infrastructure. How should the council, within the bounds of its powers, seek to create more homes for islanders whilst balancing the environmental cost of more building?
You can balance the environmental costs of building by building the right houses. At the moment, the the government target is, I think it's, hold on, 641 per year. Sorry, I don't remember that figure off the top of my head. I have to look at it. But it's 641, which is far, far, far too many. I was briefly in charge of planning back 4 years ago, and the actual number that the Isle of Wight can sustain building-wise is somewhere in the region of 300 to 400. That's what is capable of being built by the builders on the island and will actually sell. And one of the problems is that we're giving large numbers of applications, but they're not actually being built because no one will buy the houses even if you did build them. So it's a supply and demand problem. The Vectis Party's policy is that the target shouldn't be 641, it should be 350, of which 50 should be social housing because there's a huge shortage of social housing on the island. And a further 150 should be reserved for islanders, either people already living here, people with familial connections, or people that have got a job here. So that will enable people on the island to have those houses. And obviously, in order to meet that target, they would need to be targeted towards those people. So they would have to be in the right price range. One of the problems with affordable housing is that it isn't affordable because it's based on a percentage of the value. We would end that. We think affordable housing should be based on average wages, local wages, which would make an affordable house on the Isle of Wight something in the region of 136,000, which is far more affordable because that's about 5 times the average wage on the island. So that's what we see as the future of housing. And yeah, it's a serious problem for the island.
It is a very, very, very serious problem. I mean, particularly of interest to me is rental properties, and the absence of rental properties is eye-wateringly bad. Looking for a ground floor flat for my mother-in-law, who's getting to the point where she can't go up the stairs, and maybe she has to live on the other side of the Isle of Wight. I mean, yeah, really?
Yeah, not acceptable. Not acceptable.
No, astonishing. Okay, last one. It's gone quickly and smoothly, huh? So, Daryll, knowing your local community as you do, what local issue would you like to address that you know is of concern to residents?
As I started with my introduction, there are the 3 local issues that are really at the forefront of people's minds, and most of the people on the doorstep will answer as one of those being their main concern. For me, I think if you set me a target for the next 4 years as your local councillor, the key for me is the road situation in Wootton, because several of the roads are in terrible condition. New Road, Church Road, they haven't been resurfaced. Someone told me that the last time Church Road was resurfaced was actually in the early 70s when it was Newport Borough Council, and it wouldn't surprise me. So these are clearly a major issue. But the other major issue is the speed. So my pledge is that during the course of the next 4 years, I will do my absolute utmost to ensure we get a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in the residential roads of Wootton. And I think that will really improve people's quality of life and make the roads safer and the communities safer for the people that live here.
Good. I'm not supposed to show any bias, but good policy. That's it for the questions, Daryll. The last thing now is for you to have a couple of minutes to wrap up, and you can make a statement, you can reflect on this process, anything you like. It's entirely up to you. Okay. Okay.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. I think it's been great. The questions have been really good. The ones that you obviously wrote yourself and the ones submitted by the public been absolutely spot on the money, and we've covered some important points there. There are a myriad of other important points. the breadth of the Isle of Wight Council is large, and people need to understand that. It gets into everybody's lives in so many different ways. We haven't even mentioned things like the floating bridge, which a lot of people in parts of the island will be very interested in, and I'm sure it was a hot topic when you did East Cowes. But what we've seen over the last 4 years is really a series of failures by the current administration. We've got declining roads, we've got declining education, we've got declining jobs, we've got declining transport with the floating bridge, declining services, all these things. So if you want that to change, then decline to vote Conservative and vote for somebody else, hopefully myself, to end the decline and start to put things right in Wootton Bridge and the Isle of Wight more generally.
Okay, so sounds like it's a wrap. All right, Daryll, thank you very much for taking part in this process.
No, you're welcome.
Everybody was invited. There's no subplot, there's no conspiracy, there's nothing funny going on with IsleVote21. Nobody knew anything more than what you knew going into this, and hopefully we can put some human faces onto the councillors before they get there, and hopefully those that have partaken in this process will be well represented. Okay.
Well, thank you very much, and it's always a pleasure to answer questions, however they come to us.
And if I don't see you before, I'll see you on IsleVote25. Thank you, Daryll.
Thank you very much. Good evening.